The anime gets straight to the point, with our protagonist waking up as a prisoner. She opens her eyes, realizes she's handcuffed, and quickly understands the reality. She's become a hostage of those cruel barbarians. But for us to understand how she ended up in this situation, let's rewind the story a bit. Picture the scene, a massive battlefield, where the barbarians were just completely dominating everything. The guy's armor was so tough it could even block rifle shots, and the knights were already completely demoralized. But their leader, that same blonde from before, steps up and reminds everyone that they're the brave knights of the Eastern Expedition of Ilderin. Their duty is to fight. She gives instructions to hold off the enemy offensive and tells them that if they succeed, they'll be able to retreat safely. The name of this blue-eyed blonde is Serafina de la Villian, captain of the first company. With an incredible strike from her magic sword, she mercilessly defeats the barbarians who try to attack her. Serafina knows she has to do the impossible to save as many knights as she can, or else it will be the end of the 16th expedition after 7 long years. That's when things get tense. Right at that moment, a gigantic barbarian leader charges forward, trampling everyone in his path. When he comes face to face with Serafina and sees her crystal helmet, he immediately realizes she's the boss. The big guy says he's tired of fighting regular soldiers and expects her to give him a real battle. The captain realizes that if she wants to save her team, she'll have to face this monster, because his sword cuts through soldiers like they're made of paper. She tells the lieutenant to let her brother know that she fell fighting for her country, and then she charges at the leader with everything she's got. But the guy completely dominates the fight with ease. Seeing that she was completely outmatched, Serafina calls on the Princess of Wisteria for strength, and at that very moment, her magic sword begins to shine. She attacks the enemy with all the energy she has left, but when their blades clash, her sword shatters into pieces. All the knights realize that defeat has come. Serafina accepts her fate and presses the broken blade to her own neck. But here's the twist. The leader of the barbarians tells her to stop because he's not going to let her die that easily. She put up a good fight, so now she belongs to him, and he warns her that he won't finish her off as long as he can think of ways to use her body. The poor thing goes into a total panic. And now, back in the present, she remembers that she was brought there as a war prize. She wonders if they kept her alive to get information out of her, but then she realizes that if they notice she's a girl, things could get really dangerous. Despair hits her hard, especially when she remembers that her knights swore to fight for her. If they didn't manage to retreat, they could all be dead in enemy territory. And worst of all, if they don't conquer the East, the people in the capital will starve. She feels frustrated for having failed in her duty as a noble. But right at that moment, a barbarian girl named Circe enters the cell and tells her that she takes his whole nobility thing way too seriously. The girl says she serves the man who captured her. Serafina looks at her, sees the tools on her belt, and immediately asks if she's here to start the torture. Circe laughs and asks what the hell she's talking about, since her only job is to make sure the boss's trophy is kept in the best possible condition. Without wasting any time, she restrains the captain, who closes her eyes, promising herself not to give in to the pain. Meanwhile, the leader of the barbarians figures the girl must be awake by now and starts walking toward the cell. Back with Serafina, this situation is a bit awkward but luxurious. Circe finishes the bath, saying that now she smells nice and is clean, totally different from before when she was covered in blood and dirt from the battle. The servant comments that knowing she went head-to-head with their lord, she expected to find a really tough woman, but ended up seeing someone actually quite feminine. Serafina, feeling awkward, replies that a woman knight doesn't need to be feminine, but Circe couldn't care less about that opinion, because the only thing that matters is that she caught the boss's attention. When the girl pulls out a knife, Serafina freaks out and tries to break free, thinking the torture was about to start. But to her surprise, Circe just unlocks the handcuffs, trims her nails, puts her in clean clothes, and fixes her hair. Serafina is completely lost. She smells some kind of aromatic oil and wonders if this is some barbaric custom before an interrogation. But her thoughts are interrupted by a huge crash. Circe gets straight to the point. That scream could only be from one person, and she was right. The leader of the barbarians shows up at the prison, and as soon as he lays eyes on Serafina, he immediately says she looks like a completely different person now. Since they didn't have a formal introduction on the battlefield, he takes the opportunity to introduce himself as Bjor, heir to the Great Rooting, the owner of that voice that shakes everything. Serafina freezes. Up close, with those golden eyes, the guy doesn't even seem human. She remembers the stories her grandfather used to tell about an expedition 20 years ago. It sounded like a fairy tale, but Bior's standing right in front of her, proving it was all true. She already imagines the worst and thinks she's going to be sacrificed. Determined not to lower herself, she declares that she's Serafina from the Liviante lineage and that she won't beg for anything. If she's going to be sacrificed, he should just get it over with. Fear and Cersei are completely confused. Even compliments her name, but asks what this talk about sacrifice is all about. Then comes the bombshell. She's there because he wants her to be his wife. Serafina turns bright red, but she doesn't fall for it. She fires back, saying it's just a trick to get her to let her guard down before he does something weird. Bior just denies it and says that if he wanted to, he would have already done it. She insists that they're enemies and can't get married, but he explains that things don't work the same way as they do in the West. In his family, it's a generations-old tradition to marry women knights. Serafina thinks it's all crazy, but Bior goes for checkmate. Didn't you just say a moment ago that I could do whatever I wanted? Was it just your throat? She realizes she needs to choose her words more carefully. Then Bior comes clean and admits it's not just about tradition. When their swords crossed, he felt her skill and honesty. For him, a good fight is worth more than 1,000 words. It was basically love at first sight. He says goodbye, telling her he won't force anything, leaving Serafina there in disbelief at the whole situation. Her mind drifts back 7 years, to the kingdom of Hildornen. Her brother, Sidious, tells her about the king's decree for a new expedition and says she's been named captain. She's super excited, but Sidious kills the mood by asking her to go to a noble banquet. Even though she has no patience for these parties, she accepts as if it were an order. On the streets, the scene is bleak, lots of hunger and poverty, but the people still bow as the carriage passes by. At the banquet, the atmosphere is tense. Serafina has to put up with nasty comments from people who can't accept a woman leading knights. She isolates herself at the bar, but 3 young women come over to strike up a conversation. They ask if she's not afraid of the barbarians and say she should leave that to the men, even bringing up Princess Wysasia, who disappeared during the war. To them, a woman's happiness is just getting married and taking care of the house. Serafina gets furious and leaves without saying a word. On her way back, she sees a group trying to steal food. When they attack her, she handles the situation in no time. The men say it's better to steal than to starve. Moved, she gives them her own necklace to help their families and asks them not to steal anymore. That's why she wanted so badly to conquer the East, to give her people a better life. Time passes, and on the day of departure, she asks for protection from the memory of Princess Wystasia. But Sidious shows up again, asking if she failed to find a husband. He mocks her career, saying that a sword doesn't change politics. In the middle of the scolding, Sidious's face turns into Bior's, yelling that she's gonna be his wife. She wakes up from the nightmare with a start. When she looks to the side, she sees that hunk of a man snoring peacefully. But as she moves, the sheet slips off and Serafina ends up getting a first-hand look at the barbarian's most powerful sword. That was the end of the episode. Comment the words Part 2 so I know you've made it this far and want to see how this drama unfolds. I'll give your comment a heart. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter, because the hype is just getting started. Without further ado, Rababana says goodbye and see you next time.